Hello, I'm Father Tom Dubois. I'm the parish priest of the Taunton Vale Catholic Churches here in Taunton and Wellington. And it's a great joy to be able to introduce to you four of the people who are going to be received into full communion with the Catholic Church at Easter. For me as a priest, it's always one of the great joys of my priesthood, of my life, to see people on that journey of faith who have come, have explored, have felt a call from God in so many different ways to come and discover more about the Catholic faith. And these four, in very different ways, have felt called to become Catholics and will be doing so very soon. And I think this is a lovely opportunity for us as a parish to get to know these four a little bit better, to be encouraged, to be inspired by their journeys, and perhaps also to be able to share that journey with others who are also thinking about perhaps becoming a Catholic, who would like to know a bit more. And I think it's always so interesting, encouraging to hear other people's stories, to hear about how God has been at work in their lives. Wherever you are in your faith journey, I'm sure you will be inspired and encouraged and really lifted in that journey with God through listening to these interviews. Could you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, my name's Roger. We recently moved to Somerset 2 years ago. My partner has been Catholic all her life, and I've been going with her for 4 years to church. It was last year that I started to find my own ways, sort of thing, and feel need to find out more. So here we are.
Well, for me, it was about a year ago that at one of the Easter services, that a friend invited me to come along and to experience it. And it was quite something that first time I was in the Catholic Church and seeing how much people stand up and sit down and know all the words. But at the same time, it was really welcoming and an amazing sense of peace, and I was so curious to find out more about it. So that started my journey. That started my journey towards Catholic Church.
My name's Kim Brake. I am an insurance agent, partner in the NFU Mutual office in Wells, and I have been back in the UK now for about 8 years, having lived abroad for quite a long time. And I moved back here from Africa really to be closer to my family and for my daughter to grow up around family. And I'm very pleased to be back home really.
I'm Debbie Hartstone. I've lived in Somerset now for about 40 years. I've recently retired from working in the NHS and worked as a midwife and worked in the Somerset area for about 20 years as a midwife. And then after that, I was managing a primary care dental service for children with special needs and adults. I've grown up as part of a family who have been part of both Anglican churches and Roman Catholic churches. So in many ways, as a child, that was a very familiar thing for me to go to both churches. And I think one of the things as I grew up was very much feeling that the Mass was very similar. We would say the same words, we would say the same prayers, and there seemed a lot of unity between the churches. But I think as I started to think a little bit more deeply about it, then I recognised how different they really are. And I think it was that authenticity of the Catholic Church that has really drawn me more towards it. And as we've been going forward over the last few weeks, particularly that call to prayer and developing that relationship with God, which is very different from the relationship that I would have had in the Anglican Church. And whilst the church doesn't make it different, I think it's my understanding and also perhaps my commitment to that that's different.
I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about your journey with God. I mean, have you always believed in God? Has that been a journey as well?
For me, I've always believed in something. didn't know who, didn't know what. I've always believed there's something there. Having been baptised at birth and given minutes, hours and days to live, I had no other choice at that time during my childhood bits. And I was too much into sport to worry about anything else at that time, because I was playing all sorts of different sports all over the weekend. And I found as life's gone on, got a bit slower, I've had more time to think. And yes, I do believe that having the time to think about it has made you realise.
I find that really hard at home. I find it really hard to find the time at home to stop and just be with my own thoughts and just talk to God, because there's always, as you say, so much going on. And I found it really helps to be able to come to church and sit, especially when there's not a service on, and just sit quietly in the church and be with God, and to talk to someone that I find it much more difficult to hear outside, much easier to be close to in this kind of special, peaceful place. I was christened at birth, and my parents took me to church during my childhood, but that was the end of my journey at that time. I went because I was told to, rather than really feeling any, being aware of any close connection. And that lasted for 20 years after that. And it's only very recently that I still would have been saying, there's no proof of God. There's no proof, and so there's nothing, there's no reason for me to go to church, because there's nothing to build on. If you can't see it, if you can't touch it, if you can't kick it, it's not real. I never found, like you, I would never say that I didn't believe it was possible. I was always sure there was a possibility, but I left it there. And that was enough for me for a long time. And I think what changed was a desire to find some peace in my life. And what I found was that once I took a step towards God and towards the church, that peaceful feeling came and met me. It's like I took one step and God took one towards me. And I sort of started craving that and looking for it more.
And it draws you in more.
It really does.
It draws you in more, because the more you feel it, the more you want to find it.
Yeah, definitely.
You want to get closer to it, and you want to know more.
And there's so many ways to do it as well. Once you start, there's so many different ways you can find
different avenues you can take, and especially on your own, you don't necessarily have to. You learn as you go, don't you? You learn that actually I don't need to go to church to find him or to speak with him.
Yes.
You can do it in all sorts of different ways. I know at the moment I'm doing mine mostly down the M5 and the A3 going to work because it's peaceful. It's my time in my car, and it's my safe haven that I can have as little as long as I want to have that journey, to be there with him.
I've been an Anglican for all my life, and I've moved around quite a bit. And when I lived abroad, I was living in Africa, and the only English-speaking church was a Catholic church. And so I started going to the Catholic church, and I felt so welcomed, and almost like I was coming home. And that was the start of sort of my thinking about Catholicism. And I've been drawn to the fact with Catholicism that you sort of know what you're aiming for. There's a standard of sort of morals that you need to you try to meet, and I really like that, and so that's what sort of brought me initially into thinking about it, and then I suppose the final thing which was concrete for me was I've not been too well for the last couple of years, and that sort of makes you put things into perspective. And I thought, well, what am I waiting for? And that's when I got in touch with Father Tom, and as they say, it's all history from there.
I think often it's quite a challenge to make that first step of approaching the church. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about how that happened for you, anything you'd say for people who are perhaps struggling to make that.
For me, I found that I had to make my first step in complete secrecy. I needed nobody to know I was doing it, and so I found that it was often when I was on holiday or away from Taunton that I would find a church, a Catholic church, and just stop in for the Sunday service, or just stop in and sit in the yard for a bit. And it was always so welcoming. These people who'd never met me before saw me coming in, maybe so I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. Didn't make a thing of it. They were just so welcoming. And I started to build a habit, I think, of looking out for churches that I could visit that weren't in my hometown. And it really worked for me. It made me feel very welcome.
For me, as I say, my partner's, I used to go with my partner, and I still do go with my partner every week, but I found it easy to go with her because I had someone that I could lean on. That she could guide me as well as show me where I am to keep up with the hymns and prayers and stuff. But it was the welcoming of other Catholics in the church and also the priests. And that makes a big difference. There's more of a connection with, I think, with Catholic priests in general, that they do make you welcome, as do the community in the church as well.
I remember there was one week for me that was quite early on, and I got the time wrong, and I ended up turning up half an hour early, which was unusual for me. I'd usually be about at the same time that everything was starting. But I was there half an hour early, and so were so many other people, including one of the priests. And it was so nice that he kind of came and sat with me and said hello. And yeah, you're right, the priest made such a difference. And although to begin with I was quite intimidated about speaking to anyone with authority in case they kind of pulled me in quicker than I wanted them to.
Yeah.
But that's not what I found.
No, it's, even with this journey, it has been a long journey, but it's left to still be at your speed. So you get the tools that you need to learn and see, but everything's still at your pace, sort of thing. So that's been easy. It's made it easier to follow.
Yeah, definitely.
My understanding has certainly deepened, and one of the things that's been a real joy over the last few weeks has been developing a greater knowledge of the Catholic Church, and particularly in doing that journey with other people in a similar place. And so together we found out a lot more. We've had a greater understanding of things. We've looked at different areas of Scripture. We've looked at different areas of the Mass. We've been following a video programme, which we've watched short clips about, put together by the Sycamore Trust. And that's been really interesting, asked us some very challenging questions, which we've taken a very long time to then answer, and done a lot of discussion about along the way, which has been really lovely and really given us a chance to think things through for ourselves.
And I think echoing what Debbie says, with, for instance, when I was going to church, there was never any real sort of discussion about praying outside of church, whereas now, we talk about praying daily and having a conversation with God, which I think that's where, my understanding has grown, and I feel more involved in everything, because it's not just going to church and what happens on a Sunday and praying, it's actually living your life through it, isn't it? So that's what I think is quite different, isn't it?
Yeah, very different.
Yeah.
I think the Sycamore videos have been a really useful way of opening up a dialogue, and I think it's the dialogue that's really helped us, and Father Tom guiding us in the right direction. One of my anxieties about coming forward to join the Journey in Faith group was that fear of judgment, really, of things that may not have gone so well before. And not really feeling whether I'd be comfortable to share those things. And I think it's that's been so easy, and that constant message of God's love and forgiveness, which has been absolutely amazing.
I think it probably does with everyone, because you're more, I find, I'm more at peace and more sort of taking things in my stride a little bit more, and it's sort of out of my hands in a way. It's in God's hands, and I think that's very helpful.
What difference do you think that journey of faith has made to you in your lives?
I don't feel as alone as I did. I feel there's always someone with me, and not just one person, but such an amazing community of people around me as well. Dead and alive, some dead for thousands of years, and yet I still feel them with me, encouraging me and supporting me as I do things right and as I do things wrong. And it's given me confidence I didn't have before to take on things I didn't expect I'd be able to. And sort of a belief that it's going to be okay if I fall down, that I was struggling to find as well. I really like that.
Yeah, that's a big thing. It's having the courage, knowing that if you get it wrong, you can still get back on track to get it right.
The aim is to feel closer to God, but also to feel part of the community, which I'm starting to feel. But I feel once I'm actually, welcomed into the church at Easter, I feel that I'll be in a community, and I almost feel as if, then everyone's arms sort of come around you, and you feel really part of that community, and that's, I think, very important for most of us, to feel that in one way or another.
So it's very soon you'll be received into full communion in the Catholic Church and be receiving those amazing sacraments of confirmation and Eucharist. And I'm wondering, what are you most looking forward to about becoming a Catholic?
For me, it will be the final piece in the jigsaw of being as one with the community and with God. Because I've seen for myself, when people go up and I get my blessing, I know I'll miss that, but I will then feel like I'm more part of with the church in that piece. That's the final piece for me.
There is a very beautiful service, so this will happen as part of the Easter Vigil Mass this Easter, which is very lovely for us. Very nice too.
Quite excited, I'm
Very excited.
Yes.
And even though we've been confirmed in the Anglican Church previously, we will be confirmed into the Roman Catholic Church and be able to make our first Holy Communion.
I mean, when I was confirmed, I think we were slightly older in the Anglican Church. I think I was 12.
Yeah,
Was it
about
12 years old? So you're a little bit, older, so you know what you're saying, but it's still just part of what your family did, and you go along and you sort of do what you're told, really. And I think coming to it later, yes, you're actually making that decision, aren't you, yourself? And it's a very affirmative, action.
I feel like it will bring me closer to Jesus, in that I've been taking steps towards, and I've been feeling the church and God reaching out to me as well. And yet there's a distance that I feel I can't cross on my own.
And finally, I guess just to ask you, what would you say to someone who is perhaps thinking about becoming a Catholic or exploring more?
Well, I looked at the website and found an email. I think it was email or a phone number, just called.
And I did the same.
Yeah, make an appointment. But I'm sure you could come and knock on the door. Someone here. Yes. I think also for me, I would say as soon as I had the first meeting with Father Tom, I knew that this was something that I wanted to explore and I would feel comfortable doing. And I'd encourage anyone that's thinking about becoming a Catholic, or not even quite thinking but just wants to explore it a bit. Come and have a chat with Father Tom, because he's so open and easy to talk to and interesting to talk to that even if after an hour's discussion you decide not to, you'll have a very interesting conversation. So there's nothing to lose by coming in, taking that first step. It's actually much easier than you would think, isn't it? It's actually when it comes to it. So yeah, definitely.
Don't be shy. Don't be scared. There are people all around that will help you, guide you, and then you can find your own path. I know I have. But it's knowing that people out there do care and will help you, and won't say, don't do that, don't do this. They'll, everywhere around will just be happy to help and to, point you in the right direction.
I was told at the beginning of my journey that door is always open, that you've got to walk through it, but it's open and waiting for you. And that's only like one step. That's one step through that door, and everything starts to open up. And so take that small step, whatever it might be, because the door's open and waiting for you to. So give it a go. And that's all you need to do, and the rest will be looked after for you.
For those who would like to find out a bit more, who are encouraged and perhaps inspired by these stories, I think the first step would be to invite you to get in contact. And I'm always very happy to meet up with people, if you'd like to have a chat about your journey in faith and any questions you might have. And then we offer a group experience, a journey in faith, which we offer every year as an opportunity for people to get together as a group, and to be able to share and to get to know each other as a group, and to be on a journey together. I think there's something very powerful about not being on one's own, but really sharing that journey, exploring faith, not just learning it in this intellectual level, but really coming to know Jesus through prayer, through celebrating those amazing ways in which God gives us life, through growing in love for others. And I think there's something very powerful about doing that together as a group. And so we run that every year. People are very welcome to come and join. There's no sense of obligation. You can come and join and walk away or feel actually this isn't right for me. But I think it can be it's always a very warm, welcoming group, and a lovely shared experience of a faith journey, really. So yeah, to invite you, if you're interested in that, to get in contact. I'd like to say also, perhaps someone watching this might be someone who's a Catholic who's been away from their faith. And often we find that there are people for all sorts of different reasons who have stopped practicing their Catholic faith, and say how welcome you would be to return, and how much we'd love to see you back. And we run a beautiful program called Landings for those who are interested in finding out a bit more about coming back to the practice of the Catholic faith.